A new report by Forbes finds that Trump's net worth, meaning the valuation of his properties, his assets, not the cash he has in hand, has plummeted by $600 million this year. Cry me a river. This really couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Seriously, my heart bleeds for Donald Trump. Forbes' evaluation shows massive declines in all but one of his New York properties, save for Trump World Tower. His only saving grace has been his holdings in New York City parking garages, as more people drive in to commute, which I'm sure is his pride and glory. His non-New York properties are tanking too, losing massive amounts of money in his Silicon Valley property as everyone around him gets rich. And his golf courses, which should theoretically be above water as a socially distant activity in the middle of the pandemic, they're also losing money. Only Mar-a-Lago is above water, probably because it's basically Trump Disney World. His Miami course, look at that figure, it's down $114 million. And why the Schadenfreude is so real for me is because this was entirely preventable if he was smarter about the lockdown. We could have done a universal mask mandate, and we could have actually given people UBI so they could have more money to spend at these properties and people could have more cash in hand. There were so many things that could have been done differently. Instead, Trump decided to go with, I'm going to pretend the pandemic doesn't exist, and he's now taken a massive financial hit because of that. More from the Hill summarizing Forbes' findings. Forbes attributed the decline in Trump's net worth to the coronavirus, noting the pandemic's effects on the industries in which he holds his biggest assets. Values for his office buildings plummeted, as they did for his hotels in big cities. Trump saw big dips in his New York real estate this year, according to Forbes. He owns a 30% stake in office and retail space in 1290 Avenue of the Americas, with a net value of $342 million. The property's value declined $109 million in the last year, the magazine noted. Other properties in New York owned by Trump also saw sharp declines, including a $70 million dip at Trump Tower, which has a net value of $167 million, and a $65 million decline at 40 Wall Street, which has a net value of $262 million. Overall, Trump's New York real estate declined by an estimated $326 million. Trump's non-New York real estate declined by an estimated $124 million across five properties. Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C., with a net value of negative $2 million, declined by $66 million over the year, according to Forbes. So I'll do the math for you there. So it started at a negative $2 million valuation, and then it declined by $66 million in the past year. Let me get out my calculator. That's minus $68 million for the valuation of the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. Even though I would travel to D.C. a good amount for work, and I would see that it still had very high prices last I checked. So someone running the business there probably isn't doing the right thing. But, I mean, everyone's feeling the economic hurt of the pandemic, but specifically leisure and hotels. And again, this is a direct result of the lack of foresight by the Trump administration, their decision to essentially give Steve Mnuchin and the Treasury unlimited discretion to hand out taxpayer money under the cloak of darkness and not give any money to regular people, and just think, oh, yeah, it's going to trickle down. We're going to enrich the CEOs, and then everyone's going to have money in their pockets to spend on leisure and activities like golf and hotels. Sure. He wasn't even smart enough to realize that that was a giveaway to other corporations, other industries. He could have rigged it in his favor, but he's not smart enough. He does stuff like that in the open, but not with this coronavirus bill. So this is just another indicator that Trump isn't even smart enough to save his own businesses with corruption, and this is part and parcel of his pandemic response. Everyone's getting hurt, including himself, and he could have prevented it, but he's not bright enough to.